Yes, 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 team. Regular listeners will notice that this is an unfamiliar voice. My name's Dan Martin. I am a mental performance coach at TMP, head up the entry-level coaching program division for coaches at the 25 to 50 client mark. And today I'm sat here with a legend. His name is Andy Trinder. He runs a business called The Beginner's Coach, where he helps beginners find their feet, gain confidence, and transform their lives through the power of his coaching. He has been through the TMP Evolution coaching program, and I have had the honor of walking him through that myself. Andy, brother, welcome.
Good morning.
Good
How
morning.
are we?
Very well, thank you. Very, very well indeed. So look, to kick things off, it would be amazing if you could just give the listeners, the watchers, a bit of an introduction into Andy's world, who you are, perhaps where you started on the journey, and whatever you think to be relevant, really. So over to you. Who is Andy Trinder?
So now, Andy Trinder is probably the most confident version of myself. Definitely the biggest family man you'll see. Dog dad to Lola.
Oh yeah,
Fiance.
Lola.
And that's kind of where my world revolves around, and a big, big golfer, and giving myself time to do so. But how I would beat anyone at procrastinating. I was horrendous, and I would beat myself up for it. And that affected the amount that I worked, the amount that I kind of took control of my own life, and that obviously affected the results I got with my own clients and how I kind of didn't lead from the front back then. And that was pretty tough.
There's a couple of different directions we can go in there, right? There's the procrastination piece, but then there's also the kind of guilt that we'd see around taking time off, because as you've just said there, golf is a big, big passion of yours, something that you really, really enjoy doing. But when we first started working together, just taking the time off to go and enjoy those passions was quite a challenge for you, and ended up kind of chasing your tail quite a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's like I was kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Like I've always had like this inner feeling of like I really want to work hard. Mm-hmm. I really want to just push myself and always be seen as working. Mm-hmm. And because I had always had that inner feeling of like, right, I need to keep on working. I know downtime equals uptime. But for me to have that downtime off, I just didn't feel I was deserving of it. Mm-hmm. So whenever I did manage to get myself go on the golf course or go for a walk or whatever it was, I would just constantly be on my phone and just not in the moment. Mm-hmm. That was difficult for me.
Yeah, I remember the point probably about halfway through the program where we was talking about downtime and the importance of taking downtime and giving yourself that psychological breathing space to allow your creativity to run wild and actually explore different ideas rather than just being kind of in the process of building all the time. And there was so much resistance, and I'm pretty certain that there'll be other coaches out there who will resonate with where you're at in that place of, I don't feel like it's safe to take the time off. I don't feel like it's the right thing to do because my business is going to come crashing down if I do. So actually, let's just step back for a second, breathe. The world isn't going to stop turning if you take a day off. And I remember the day after you took that first full day off, you sent me a message saying, hate to say you were right, but I get it. Downtime really does equal uptime.
Yeah, I think because I always felt like I had so much to do and I wasn't organized. So people around me who know me now, like there is no one more organized than me. I've got everything in the right systems. My Trello board is immaculate and I stick to it like God knows what. But back then I had a list of things all in my head that I needed to do. And because I had so much in my head that I needed to do, I would just do none of it. And then it would just be that constant revolving door of, I need to get stuff done. And it just wouldn't happen. And yeah, that was just, that was a big thing of not letting myself take time off. What you're talking about there, the time off, was taking a full day away from electronics. That was uncomfortable the first day, but loved it. It was great.
Yeah, it's a physical boundary which makes an enormous difference. How have you found that difference to translate into your productivity now? So now giving yourself that barrier to just kind of break out of the process of, contacting clients, building your content out, and just being on the business. Giving yourself, even if it's one day, that's what you typically take, right? It's one day out of the business. What tangible benefits and effects have you seen to the rest of your week as a result of doing that?
It's definitely just like a headspace and energy, just being clear. Like, that my head was very cloudy and it was very, very full. And it's hard to explain what your head is like to someone who's never experienced it. If someone's there and they can, listeners now can, I've got my thoughts all in order. That's fine. Like, you won't understand what that's like, but the people that do, that's a very difficult place to be in. So just taking that day, that helped me just be able to sit there. Even if we went to the cinema, I could sit there and go, I don't care. Like, no one's, the world isn't going to end. My clients aren't going to, disappear. Like, I know I've got all the resources and everything in place that, like, if they need something, they can go and find it. Like, the world's not going to come crumbling down. I'd say the first probably 2 or 3 weeks, I was guilty of, yes, doing that and sticking to that boundary, but thinking, like, oh, what am I going to come back to tomorrow? That was difficult. But now, it's like, because I gave my space that day, I can now in the evenings switch off at, say, 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock. If someone messages me, it's not like that inner little feeling going, oh, you need to reply.
Yeah.
I can actually step away and go, I'll get to them tomorrow. And that's saved a lot of energy. And that's helped me being able to now just be a lot more consistent with things.
Yeah.
Instead of a really good month and then a low month because I'm battered.
Yeah. Like with anything, it takes time to build up data. That first initial decision that you make to take a bit of time off in this example, it will be met with resistance because it's unfamiliar. And as human beings, we're hardwired to stay the same. The way we've always done things is the way which we will typically continue to do things. And if we have always worked 7 days a week, 12 plus hours a day, and that's become our normal, then we'll continue to do that until we challenge it. And that's naturally going to be met with resistance, which is why when we kind of arrived at that place, you were going, I don't really know if I want to do this. But you push through that, you recognize that actually this is something which is really positive and it's benefiting me. So I'm going to continue doing it. And you give yourself that reassurance that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I kind of flip it into the way of, like, what would I say to clients as well?
Yeah.
If they say to me, is like, oh, this change is a little bit uncomfortable. It's kind of like, well, what did you expect? Like, if you can ask yourself, like, why are you feeling like this? And also, like, what did you expect? Did you expect it to be completely normal? It's like, if you ask them, it's like, oh, they're good. Like, for example, my beginners, like, oh, it's really uncomfortable me going to the gym and me pushing myself. So that's okay, but what did you expect? Did you expect it to be comfortable? Did you expect it to be easy? Like, you're in the process of changing your entire life. Like, what you've done right now has led you to how unconfident you are, how uncomfortable you are, how unhappy you are. And that's you being comfortable. So you have to lean into something that's going to be uncomfortable for you to just get out of this. And that's how I flip it for myself.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Really powerful. That's an interesting line for us to go down there, I think, actually. So you help beginners, people who are typically brand new to the gym, is that right?
Yeah, most of them haven't stepped foot in the gym.
Okay. And is that because that is the pathway which you've taken yourself? And because what we typically see in coaches is coaches will build programs for the younger versions of themselves, right? So have you built this program for beginners because when you were starting your fitness journey, you perhaps looked around and thought, hang on a minute, there's not really anyone out there who kind of gets me?
Yeah, so I think you've got two types of beginners. You've got beginners who they'll go to the gym and they'll go to the weight section with friends and they'll kind of do it, but they won't have any idea on what to do, but they'll still push themselves. Or you've got a lot of the beginners that I deal with, like they're too afraid to even touch the weights. Like the machines just look absolutely out of this world for them. Like, and they'll go into the gym. They may go for a week, but they've just walked on the treadmill and they're petrified of all the loud people and everything else in there. I think that's what I was on like my first year of being in the gym. I'd go to like this big, nice gym, and in there you'd just be completely overwhelmed by all these people who are in shape, look like they got their shit together, when really, knowing now, like that they didn't. So what I'm trying to do for my guys is just help them realize and help them understand that no matter what they look like and how they feel, or how they look like they feel, they're probably just like you.
There's a phrase which I actually learned when I was studying to become a therapist. My therapy mentor, Trevor Sylvester, has got this phrase that we are all fellow strugglers. We're all in this together. And naturally, it's quite easy to feel quite isolated, especially venturing into something new like a fitness journey. You walk into a gym, perhaps feeling quite insecure. I know that I certainly was feeling quite insecure when I first walked into a gym, felt quite out of place, like I didn't really belong there, like a bit of an idiot, not really knowing what to do with anything. But everybody's in the same boat, despite what some people might look like in terms of their appearance. They might be really, big, muscular, really, really good shape. But on the inside, we're all going through a similar process of self-discovery and exploration. And that's challenging and difficult. So what you're doing in your program is holding people's hands, metaphorically speaking, and saying, hey, look, dude, I've been where you are. I get it. It's not a nice place to be. But you and everybody else in this program, we're all in this together.
Yeah, and I think I had the luck of having someone quite early on in that journey. There was a close friend of mine, who you know as well, Tom, who basically metaphorically held my hand and go, right, this is how you do things. And because I had that early on, and I had that kind of care and trust from someone, like that's where I fell in love with the process myself. And I was like, right, I like this feeling. Like I want to give this back to someone else. And that's what pushed me into there. But I think what you said about people just not feeling like they belong, like I did at the beginning of the gym, but a lot of my life, whether it was in school, whether it's around people I know, like I've had that feeling. So that's why I've probably gone down the way that I have.
If you could label that feeling, what would you label it? What would you call that?
Like I've always felt different. Like kind of non-belonging, but I've always felt like there's something just a little bit not off, but different. Like I remember being in primary school and I always used to get the fun taken out of me because I was from Canada. And like, that's not something to be taken the mick out of. But it was something that, you're in school, like you would find anything. And it just, all those little things. And then obviously for the people watching, I've had no hair. And that was something that I probably noticed when I was like 15, 16 of it going.
Right.
Like, right now, that's something different. So I've always had like little phases of my life of things just not being the same as every other one else.
Yeah. And something which I explained to you as we were working our way through, but for everybody else listening, it's when we're growing up in our formative years of development, we're forming a sense of the world and a sense of reality, and beliefs create what is essentially our operating system, to use a computer analogy. And if we have a situation quite early on in life whereby we feel different, likely form a belief of I'm different or I'm not like everybody else, something along those lines. And then because that is built at such an early point of our development, that then becomes the foundation through which we view reality from that point onwards. So then we're kind of constantly, subconsciously looking for reasons to validate that as true. So whether That's in the form of being from Canada as opposed to being from England. As kids, we like people who are like us. And there's nothing inherently good or bad about being from Canada. It's just not from England. So if the vast majority of people are from England and you're from Canada, you're different, right? And then that solidifies that belief. So it's kind of just forming that sense of self from that point. So that makes sense if that's the lens through which you're looking at life. So at what point did you recognize that being different wasn't necessarily a bad thing?
So I think I've avoided it a long time. So obviously there's a lot of things that have happened in my life where I've felt like I've fallen into this life. And I didn't realize until working with yourself and still speaking with yourself that limiting beliefs come from an earlier experience. It could be years and years and years ago, but that manifests its way into different scenarios and different reasons. And until we spoke about it, I wasn't aware of it. So yeah, to answer your question, was that probably until about 18 months ago, I knew, if we go back to the procrastinating side of it, like you and I have spoken and we've dealt with this, it came from a place of, well, I didn't feel like I deserved the life that I have now for my family, for my partner. So my reason for procrastinating was, well, I'm going to carry on procrastinating because I internally don't feel like I deserve to be any further than what I am. So we dealt with that, but I didn't know it needed to be dealt with from something from years ago. So until you know what that limiting belief is, you're not going to have a clue.
Yeah. Big misconception about procrastination. A lot of people will tell you that procrastination is a willpower issue. And in fact, that's bullshit. It's definitely not a willpower issue. It's either a psychological or emotional or physical issue. Psychological, emotional, is there a limiting belief and associated challenging emotion that's preventing you from wanting to push forward and actually remain motivated? In this case, yes, for you. Or is it physical? Are you lazy or are you just tired? And they could actually be interlinked with the emotional issue as well. But it's not as simple as, oh, we just push through, because there's usually pretty much unanimously going to be some kind of factor limiting you from being able to push through that. And that is exactly what you found here, right? You've identified what the limiting belief, challenging emotion was, isolated that, gone to the root of that. And as a result of that, procrastination just seems to disappear because you're no longer operating for that protection response of I'm not good enough, I don't belong, or whatever it was along those lines. And instead, you're at a place of having true belief in yourself.
Yeah, and I knew, because I've been around hard workers, like I've learned coaching from like the hardest workers I've ever met. So I know that that's what I want to do. And I felt like, right, I want to be working not stupid hours, but I want to work smart and hard. But there was always that something stopping me. So once we dealt with it, I was behaving like I wanted to. Like I was waking up at 4 o'clock going, oh, as if I've got another hour, I've got to lie in bed. Like I want to get up and work. And that really, really fueled me, because like that's how I want to feel about work. I don't want to wake up at 6, 7, 8 a.m. and go, oh, I've got another day to do here. Or I've got client check-ins to do. Or I've got to deal with this person who wants to leave. Like now I wake up early and I'm like, right, these are the tasks I need to do. This is what I'm going to do. And this is how I'm going to deal with them. And I was like, and that's how I wanted to feel about it. But I just didn't know how to feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's really been a true journey of evolution for you, hasn't it? Because when we first met in that real protection state, knowing that there was so much more to give, but you just didn't know how to find it, cleared the underlying emotional challenges and beliefs. And now you're actually at a point whereby you've taken your partner on full time.
Yes.
So what's that been like? What's that journey been like for you?
So obviously my partner was in her job and just wasn't fulfilled and wasn't really enjoying it. It was a really difficult job. It was a really demanding job. but it was a job where before COVID, she used to go into the office. So that load just didn't get dropped on her all the time. And obviously since COVID, she's worked in our office dealing with that. And it just got to a point where I could clearly see it was affecting her, whether it was at home, whether it was with us, and she just wasn't her. And and a few other close people know, it's like I've always wanted her to be in the business. So we sat down and it's like, right, we need to get you out of this. And that was a big step for me, because obviously I'm letting my baby go to someone else, metaphorically, my business. And having the trust in my partner was a big step, and that's something that we really worked on. But I wouldn't have been able to communicate how well I do with her if I hadn't have done the work on just being aware of what I'm feeling, how I'm thinking. Because I'll take it back to a time when I think we're about 4 or 5 sessions in, and we've introduced journaling only in times when my head was full. I'm not someone who can journal every day. There's not enough for me to do, headspace wise. But when my head is really, really full, I do it. But we dealt with bringing my partner on board, and there was a bit of friction between me and her. Not an argument, but it was just kind of grinding me a little bit. And the way I dealt with that is like, right, I took myself out of that environment, and I went to a local Starbucks and I just journaled how I was feeling, why I was feeling it. And at the end of it, I just went, right, I wrote down on my journal, and I've still got it. It's like, right, I'm going to go home. I'm going to hug her and say, I understand. But without having those conversations with you, I would have just kept, because I'm not an arguer. I stay quiet, and I just think, yeah, it'll be fine. Don't worry. But I wouldn't have been able to voice it and express how I feel, and that probably could have dragged on for a couple of days. So that really, really helped.
Yeah, there's 2 things in that. Firstly, journaling, I think typically I see a lot of pressure on journaling and how to journal. But in reality, there's no real right or wrong way to journal. And when you start applying expectations to journal consistently, morning, afternoon, and night, every single day, chances are you're not going to do it, because it's too much for a lot of people, myself included. I use it as a tool. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I'm struggling to come to a conclusion, I'll grab my journal and I'll do my thinking on paper. Doesn't always happen every day. Sometimes it doesn't happen every week. But it's a very valuable tool to have up your sleeve as and when you need it. And that's the way which journaling should be used, in my opinion. So it's amazing to hear that that's exactly how you're using it too, using it to your advantage and using it as a tool.
It's strange that there's a stigma around it.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit, especially with men as well. Like, why are you writing your feelings down on paper? And I know it's a lot more normal with females, but the whole writing down how you're feeling, what you're thinking, it's a little bit alien. If I told my friends who aren't in the coaching business, they'd be like, what are you doing that for? And it is met with a little bit of resistance, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it is. But that resistance, when it comes up in people, often comes from a place of insecurity.
Yeah.
Almost like a deflection. So you can kind of use that to your advantage. Well, actually, that resistance which is coming towards me, is that about me? Is there a problem with me? Or is that actually about them? And what you often find is that it's not a you issue, it's a them issue. And the more you can keep yourself in an I-lock position, I-lock stands for internal locus of control. I am the creator of my universe and I have the power to create whatever I want, as opposed to external locus of control. I am at the mercy of the world, inherently vulnerable and volatile place to be. Things like journaling can make an enormous difference. And also on that, the second point which I wanted to mention was, one thing which I aspire to do in every client that I take through TMP's evolution program is to get them from a place of relating from emotion. This is something which I said over and over again, and you're probably fed up with me saying it now, but it's a massively important distinction to make, because what most people do, almost without even realizing it, is operate from emotion. Let's say client drops off a program. What is the initial response as a result of that? Probably some fear, fall into a state of scarcity. Oh no, shit, how many more are going to drop off? How long have I got left? Panic. Relating from emotion, as opposed to what you've just described so beautifully and eloquently here, had a bit of friction with your partner in this case. But it could be anything. It could be any form of discomfort that you experience. You notice that emotion come up, and let's face it, we're all going to experience discomfort. Challenging emotions are going to happen. The second you're able to recognize that emotion come up, put yourself in an environment where you can almost dissociate from that. Lean on your journal if you want to, like you have. What am I feeling? What's that about? What can I do to understand it a bit better? What actions can I take to make sure that this is handled in a constructive and effective way? You're no longer relating from emotion there. You're relating to an emotion. And it's a very, very powerful place to be. Does that land with you? Is that what you'd say you were doing in that moment there?
It's a completely different way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's like, until you have the awareness of like internally looking in and going, right, what am I feeling here? Like, I'm someone who I feel very agitated a lot of the time. But now I realize that, and I can sit down and go, right, why am I? What's causing it? And it's definitely made mine and her relationship a lot stronger. Even business-wise. Like, I think I was, especially when I started online coaching, it was like people dropping off, like you said. And it was very, what have I done wrong? Why haven't I been able to keep this person? Why haven't I been able to challenge them? That's a different matter that we'll get onto probably shortly, like why I wasn't challenging them in the first place. But now when someone leaves, like I ask myself a couple of questions. And if I can answer yes to them, so like, have I done my best with that client? Have they got what they came for? If that's a yes, and they want to leave, like, I'm a coach. Like, was I expecting them to stay with me for life? Like, I'm there to provide a service to get them to their end goal. Obviously, yes, ideally for me, we build them from beginner to pro. So yes, they overcome that initial stage of zero confidence. And ideally for me, I'd keep on developing them. But if they come to me for their sole belief of what they want, not what I want for them, then that's what they come to me for. And then lastly on there, I was like, well, obviously have they got what they come for? Have I done everything in my ability for them? And then I'd say that's it. Like, there's no need to overcomplicate it. You don't need like 5, 6, 7 different questions. Like, you're a coach at the end of the day. If you've done exactly what you've done and what they've came for, then like, let them go. Just make sure you get a good testimonial off of them.
Yeah.
Good recommendation, and then just leave it at that. And then always stay in touch. I would never have bad blood with them.
Yeah. Well, that's, as coaches, we're not looking to find people to become codependent on us for support. We're looking to help people find the answers that we believe as coaches are inherent within them. They're just perhaps struggling to find them themselves, right? And this question of client drop-offs is something which we come back to time and time again with many, many coaches. And we have the 3 key questions, one of which you've already highlighted. Did they get what they came for? If yes, they've graduated. That happens. You've graduated from TMP's program. That's not a reflection on us and how we operate. It's a good thing. You've come out the other side of the program feeling better than you were when we started.
Tenfold.
Yeah, right. And a lot of clients of coaches, yours will do the same. So did they get what they came for? Secondly, if they drop off, is it financial? Something which will be a factor. And I'm sure that you've had plenty of clients in the past which have had to leave through lack of finances. That's not a direct reflection on your value that you're offering to them as a coach. It's just situational. That can happen. And thirdly,
yeah, I drew a blank at thirdly as well. I know there is a thirdly.
There is a thirdly.
And I'm sure there's someone listening that's knowing knowingly what the third one is.
Yeah, if they got what they came for, how would they know? Is it financial? Are they coachable?
Are they coachable? There you go. Did you enjoy coaching them?
Yeah. Not everyone's going to be coachable. And I'm sure you've arrived at a place, perhaps in one of those conversations which you had, which we spoke about, whereby you needed to challenge a client on something. And you asked yourself in that moment, is this person coachable? Or are they draining your resources more?
That's now that obviously, like you said, graduated, and I've been able to feel that a lot more. Like I'm always willing to give people more chances, as long as I can feel and see that they're really serious. And that's why obviously pre-qualifying people is really important. But once they're in the program, if they've promised the world and then they've started really well, and then just kind of dropped off, as long as you're comfortable to hold that space for them, is being able to speak to them and going, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Like, you've obviously got to this point in your life where you may have got to this point of progress and it's absolutely fallen apart time and time again. Can you tell me more about these things? And then that helps me being able to understand that. But if they're completely shut off and they're not going to listen to you and they're not going to respond, they're just completely unresponsive, don't take that on attack on yourself. That's something I used to take really to heart. I was like, but I think you find frustrating or annoying or upsetting on things that you know that you wouldn't do. If someone doesn't reply to you and that really upsets you, that's because you know that you wouldn't ignore someone. And that's what I feel. Like I will respond to someone within minutes if I see it. So if someone doesn't do that to me, then I met that with resistance. And you can't expect everyone to be like you or have the same values as you.
Yeah, we're all inherently different. And what you've said there is a really important point to mention, insofar as through doing the deeper psychological and emotional work on yourself, you are able to connect a lot more intimately with your clients and offer them an inherently more personal and deep service. So what have you found the difference in coaching that you're able to offer clients as a result of doing that work yourself?
I feel I've always been a personal and approachable person. I'm like speaking to people, and like sales is one of my favorite things. I can speak to people and I can really get to know them. But on the coaching aspect, I feel people open up to me really, really well. A lot better than what they did prior to working with yourself. Because instead of sitting there thinking of what's coming next, I'm sitting there and thinking and listening to what they're saying, so that I can come in with the next thing and going, right, I hear what you've said here. Tell me more on this. Instead of me just wanting to jot through things. And that's obviously helped build a longer relationship with these clients, a more open one. And just it's given me the power to just to sit there and go, our relationship will change. Like, you don't trust me just yet because you've just started, and that's okay. And I'll have these conversations with my clients who've just come through the door. Like, but as you see that you'll progress and you'll start to feel more confident and you'll start to overcome these challenges, we'll start to trust each other more because you're trusting me with changing your life. You're okay with the drink there. So I think it's really helped me to have, the more that I can make them aware that the relationship with the coach and the client changes over time, the more that they've been able to trust me and lean into me. Because obviously they're complete beginners. Like, they have no idea of the thinking that's available to them. And if I can just subtly help them realize that this is going to open a whole new world to them, like, for me, that's really powerful. Like, I love that I can do that with them. And the fact that I had one of my guys come to me and was like, I've never opened up to anyone the way that I have with you. I was like, I take so much pride in that, because this person is like 30 years old. They've gone through 30 years of their life and they've not opened up to a single person. But for some reason, the work that you and I have done and the work that I've done in the past has allowed me to connect with this person on an emotional level, and not just, here's your calories, here's your training plan, and off you go. It's helped me actually connect with the person.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So powerful. And what you're doing there is something that a lot of people, coaches, but people in general, aren't doing. And that is, you're seeking to understand, you're listening to understand, as opposed to listening to respond, which a lot of people do. And I can speak personally here. If I go back to when I was working in sales throughout my whole 10-year career, a lot of the time I was thinking about what I was going to respond before the person had even finished. And you're not really connecting with a person in that way. We've got 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason. We've got an incredible ability to listen. And sometimes just staying silent is even more powerful than trying to offer guidance, which naturally we want to do as coaches. We want to try and support and give all the time. But a lot of people who we work with, I'd imagine, particularly in your case, working with beginners, probably haven't been listened to that much ever. So when they've got someone on the opposite end of the call who's just giving them that space to be who they need to be, to say what they need to say, what an incredibly powerful situation for them to find themselves in.
And I think me being able to do that has really increased my fulfillment and enjoyment with coaching. Because if it was just, here's your macros, here's your training plan, this is kind of the community that we have. Yeah, great, they're going to get results, but it doesn't really fulfill me. I'm not changing that person. Maybe exteriorly, they're getting leaner and they're building muscle for the first time, but they're not changing themselves. And the fact that I can do that now really, like, that gives me that energy in the morning going, I'm not waking up to give someone, I'm going to change your food today. It's, I'm going to have a conversation with this person. We're going to dive a little bit deeper to see how they are. That's what coaching is, for me, anyway.
Yeah. On that thread there, if you were to give a message or a piece of advice to yourself or anyone else who's in the same position as you before we started working together, so let's go back 6 months. That Andy who doesn't really want to get up in the morning, doesn't feel too excited about what the day ahead of him brings. If you could give that Andy a piece of advice, what would you say?
Deal with your limiting beliefs earlier. And if you don't know what they are, then find someone who will help you find them. Like yourself, like everyone else at TMP. Because I had suspicions of things that had happened in my life, but I had no idea that they were the things that were holding me back. Because it's not affecting my day-to-day life now. But until I dealt with them, I was never going to act and feel and work in the way that I want to. So that would be what I'd say. Deal with them.
Deal with them. Head on.
Head on. Like, fully submit. Hands up in the air and just, take me.
I actually remember that's something that you said when we first met. It's like, I am here for this. I fully surrender. And I have this conversation with prospective clients when we meet for initial connection calls quite often. The kind of work that we do has to be a two-way street. What do I mean by that? You've got to have skin in the game. You've got to be ready and willing to go all in. But when you are, the results that you get as a result of it are pretty phenomenal, because this is the stuff which makes us who we are. As I've said already, those beliefs, those values are our operating system as human beings. And if we use the analogy of iOS operating system on an iPhone, if you leave that too long and you don't update that operating system, your apps aren't going to work properly, and you're not going to have full functionality of the device. The device is our meat suit, our body that we inhabit. The operating system is our beliefs, values, and identity. If there's a bit of misalignment there, we're holding ourselves back and we're not giving ourselves the best possible chance that we have of growth. And as an ambitious individual like a coach, you're doing yourself a disservice in not looking at that kind of stuff.
I've referred so many people to you guys because of the work that we've done and the experiences that I've had. But I've said to every single one, and there's probably going to be a lot of them that are listening to this, and I've always said to them, it's like, only do it if you're ready to face whatever has happened in your life that you may or may not have spoken about. Only do it if you're ready to speak about it. Because if you join and you're not ready to say what's on your mind, you're not going to get everything out of it.
Final question for you. If you were ready, how would you know?
Oh, it's a good one. If you were ready, how would you know? I think if you can write it on a piece of paper, if you can get it out of your head, whatever's happened, it's an experience or something that's happened or whatever it is, you can put it on a piece of paper, then I feel that I could tell you. And it's a difficult one, because if you say it to a beginner, how would you know that you're ready to start? It's like, they don't actually know. Like, you just have to start. But with this, it's a little bit deeper. And I would test yourself. If you can write down whatever the experience is on a piece of paper and you can articulate what's happened, then I'd say you're in a pretty good place to start.
I love that. And Andy, to you, what is total mental performance?
It's, for me, total mental performance is waking up in the morning excited to do what I want to do. It's being able to work as long as I want, complete the tasks that I want, being able to speak, feel, and just perform day to day how I want. Not how I see other people doing, but how I want to do. And if I can do that with the odd sprinkle of golf, I'll be happy.
Awesome. And that's where you are now?
Well, apart from sunny old Wales, we're not having any sun. When that comes back around, yes, there'll be plenty of golf.
You'll be there.
That's the one thing that's missing.
A bit of sun.
Yeah,
a bit of sun. Well, there you go. It's good to have your sights on something beyond where you are now, and that's it. A couple of months' time, mate, you'll be living the dream in Spain, I think.
We'll see.
All right, I think that's a great point for us to wrap up. Andy, thank you so much for coming here to meet with me today and share your story. And thank you for your commitment throughout the time that we've been working together as well. It's been an absolute honor to work with you. I've learned a lot from you, and I wish you all the best in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you to everyone for listening, watching. Hope to hear from you all soon. Wrapping up, thank you.